Anytime someone comes into our office for a consultation and we sit down and have a conversation about your relationship, we're going to be asking specific questions though to get to the bottom of whether there is any domestic violence going on in your particular circumstance. We always want to make sure everyone who comes into our office does feel safe in their home. And sometimes domestic violence can be hard to recognize for somebody who's been abused. So we can help inform you of what the laws are on domestic violence in California and help you recognize if you're going through that situation. So domestic violence is widely defined in California. It's not just what you might think, which is hitting or pushing. Domestic violence is going to be anything that could be verbal abuse, emotional abuse, and coercive control. So isolation from your friends, financial control, and very subtle abuse too that you may not initially recognize. If you are a victim of domestic violence, what we can do for you is we can file a request for a temporary restraining order. That is similar to an injunction in which the other side has no idea that you're going to be filing this request. You don't have to serve them in advance, but you do file it, and the court reads it and decides to give you a protection of a temporary restraining order before a hearing is held. The hearing will be held in 21 days, so that will give you a 3-week ability to get away from the abuser before you have to interact again with them. If you believe you've been falsely accused and you are served with a temporary restraining order, we have ways that we can protect you and defend against that. First and foremost, you should know that there's going to be a hearing within 3 weeks, and that time frame is meant to protect your due process rights because you have a right to be heard because you're being restrained. After that 3-week period at the hearing, you also have a right to a continuance so that we can help you prepare for a longer trial and make sure that you don't get a permanent restraining order. The most important thing is that if you are served with a temporary restraining order, is you do not contact or violate the restraining order in any way. You don't contact the party, you don't go near them, you don't try to text message them to see if this is really true. You just want to make sure that you do not violate the restraining order and you contact an attorney right away who can help you. In order to defend against a restraining order, we want to be sure to get you a fair hearing with a longer cause trial. So we want to make sure you have a time to prepare for court and we schedule a hearing that's going to give you adequate time to present evidence. And that evidence can be text messages showing that you were communicating well or any kind of evidence that would counterbalance what they presented. Also, a lot of times these cases are intertwined with child custody, and there may be an effect on your custody rights if you were to get a finding of abuse. So we want to make sure that we protect you and defend against that presumption that could apply to you. The burden of proof in a domestic violence case is going to be on the petitioner who is asking for protection. The burden of proof is the lowest standard of proof that we have in California. So it's so important that you get an attorney who can defend against a restraining order because they only need to show by a preponderance of the evidence, essentially that's more likely true than not, that they were abused, and we can help you protect against that. If you were to get a finding of abuse in a domestic violence restraining order case, there is a mandatory presumption that the court must apply. That means that you have to rebut that it is detrimental to the children or child for you to have joint or sole custody. It doesn't mean you lose parental rights. It doesn't mean that you can't get custody or even joint or sole custody. There are times where that happens, even still, but you have to rebut the presumption that the court will apply that it's detrimental to the child. And so it's important that we really defend quickly against a domestic violence restraining order involving children. If you believe that you're a victim of domestic violence, or if you've been accused of domestic violence, we are here to help you.